Welcome back, children. Biogeochemical cycle. Now we know that there are various spheres of Earth and the energy which flow is always in one way, but the nutrients which flow in the ecosystem is always cyclic, and we have learned about this in the last video. So in the cyclic flow of the nutrients within an ecosystem is called as the biogeochemical cycle. Now in a biogeochemical cycle, an equilibrium is necessary, that is, a balance is necessary. Nutrients which are necessary for the growth of organisms are continuously transferred from the abiotic to biotic factors and biotic to abiotic factors. Any imbalance in the cycle will break the link between the biotic and the abiotic factor. Therefore, equilibrium is necessary to maintain the link between the biotic and abiotic factors. So there are two types of biogeochemical cycles. One is the gaseous cycle and the other is the sedimentary cycle. Now the gaseous cycle, it is the accumulation of main abiotic gaseous nutrients which are found on the Earth's atmosphere. For example, all the abiotic nutrients which are found in the atmosphere, we can include the examples like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, etc. These are called as the gaseous cycle. Then we have the sedimentary cycle. Sedimentary cycle is the accumulation of the abiotic nutrients which are found in the soil. That is, in the sediment or on the earth. So the example of sedimentary includes different components which are found in the soil, like you can say iron, calcium or phosphorus. So these are the examples of sedimentary cycle. So these are the two cycles that takes place, that is gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Gaseous cycle is related to the atmosphere and the components which are present in the atmosphere, and the sedimentary cycle is related to the land, that is on the earth, that is on soil, what components are present in the soil. The first cycle is the carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is the circulation and recycling of carbon from the atmosphere to living organisms and after their death back to the atmosphere. This is called as carbon cycle. Now we all humans are made up of carbon. All the living organisms have some amount of carbon in them. So when this carbon is circulated from us and the atmosphere, that is called as the carbon cycle. So in all the living organisms, whatever form of carbon is there, it will be given out to the atmosphere and then again it will be taken by us or the plants in the different form. And this is called as the carbon cycle. That means the carbon is recycling and circulating in the atmosphere only. Now the carbon cycle is one of the most important biogeochemical cycle. Now why it is important? Because the abiotic carbons, the atoms which are present, they are circulated and they are recycled into the biotic form. And this is mainly because of photosynthesis and respiration. Plants convert carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, and this is by the process of photosynthesis. And they produce carbon compounds like proteins and fats, etc. Then the carnivores feed upon the herbivores. In this way, the biotic carbon which is present, it is transported from plants to the herbivores, then from the herbivores to the carnivores, and from the carnivores to the apex consumer. And this is how the carbon cycle takes place. Now here if you will see, that is carbon dioxide which is present in the air, it is taken up by the plant along with water in presence of photosynthesis they will produce what? They will produce glucose, that is the food, and oxygen is also produced. So this is done by the plants. And in our body, this is broken down by cellular respiration and it is given out in the form of energy. So we get energy from the food only. So for example, the plant has produced the food. Now this food will be consumed by us. We will consume it in our body. Cellular respiration will take place. You have studied about this in 8th standard. What is cellular respiration? Okay, that is breakdown of food materials in your body cells in the mitochondria, and then the ATP is given out, that is the energy is given out and heat is given out. And in this process we will produce what? We will produce carbon dioxide that we will give out in the atmosphere. So whatever things that is there in the atmosphere is taken from the atmosphere, and that thing is again utilized and then again returned in the atmosphere. So that means there is continuous cycle which is going on. So what happens is, after the death of all type of consumers, the decomposers, what they do is, like the bacteria and fungi, they will release the carbon dioxide again into the atmosphere by decomposition. And in this way, the carbon is continuously passed on from one living organism to the another. After the death of the living organism, carbon goes to the atmosphere and is again taken up by the living organisms only. Next is the oxygen cycle. Now, oxygen cycle is the circulation and recycling of oxygen in the biosphere. So how carbon was circulated in the biosphere? Same way oxygen is also circulated in the biosphere. Now oxygen is present in the atmosphere and the total percentage of oxygen is 21%. Now oxygen is also present in the hydrosphere and lithosphere. Now this cycle, they include both biotic and abiotic component. Oxygen is continuously produced as well as it is used up in the atmosphere. Also, oxygen is highly reactive and it is readily reacting with the elements and compound. So, oxygen is found in various forms. For example, oxygen, that is O2, along with water also, that is H2O. Carbon dioxide also contains oxygen. Then it is present in various inorganic compounds also. So, the oxygen cycle of the biosphere is very complex. Oxygen is released in the process of photosynthesis, whereas it is used up in the process like respiration, combustion, decomposition, corrosion, rusting, etc. This is the oxygen cycle of the atmosphere. Another important cycle is the nitrogen cycle. Now the circulation and recycling of nitrogen gas in different compounds is called as the nitrogen cycle. Now nitrogen also exists in two forms, that is in various biotic and abiotic processes in the nature. And the recycling and circulating of these nitrogen gas is called as the nitrogen cycle. Now, the nitrogen forms around 78% of the atmosphere, which is the maximum. So that means the maximum which is present is the nitrogen. Now, all the organisms, they are involved in the nitrogen cycle. Also, nitrogen is the most important component of proteins and nucleic acid which are present in our body. Now, as compared to other elements, nitrogen is inactive and it does not easily combine with other elements, like how oxygen combines with other element. So nitrogen usually do not combines with other element. Instead, most of the organism, they cannot use the free form of nitrogen also. Now, various processes are there for the nitrogen cycle. And in these processes, we utilize the nitrogen which is present. The first process that through which we utilize nitrogen is nitrogen fixation, which is done by most of the plants and most of the microorganisms also. So what it is it is the conversion of nitrogen into nitrites and nitrates through the atmosphere, industrial or biological processes. So it is done through industrial process also and through biological process that we have studied about the rhizobium bacteria, which fixes the nitrogen for the plant. Next process is ammonification. Ammonification is the release of ammonia through decomposition of dead bodies and excretory waste of the organism. So this is called as the ammonification. Next is the nitrification. Nitrification is the conversion of ammonia into nitrate and nitrate. So when ammonia is converted into nitrite and nitrate, it is called as nitrification. Nitri is nothing but formation of nitrates. So nitrate and nitrite is formed. Next is denitrification. Denitrification is the conversion of nitrogen compound into the gaseous nitrogen. So whatever compounds are present, so that is converted into the gaseous form. That is called as denitrification. Now the denitrification, it is done by some bacteria. Like for example, the nitrogen compounds which are present in the soil, they are converted into gaseous nitrogen by the denitrifying bacteria present in the soil. So these bacteria only convert the nitrogen into the gaseous nitrogen. So this is called as the denitrification process.